What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from the quarantine zone again, and this time we got Mario from Cult of Lilith. Thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Yeah, it's an honor to have you here. The newest album is Mara, which is scheduled to come out later this year. Could the new single that you first released, Cosmic Maelstrom, can this almost serve as like a clear representation of what the whole album is going to sound like, or is this just the beginning?
Every song is a different thing in the album, honestly. Like, we thought this would represent at least the concept of the music of Cult of Lilith, which is this necromechanical baroque. That's how we like to call it. So I would say it definitely represents the concept of the band, but then the album it's very diverse. You know, there's many different songs. You will see it. The song that we're releasing tomorrow, we're releasing an official video tomorrow for the song called Purple Tide. It's very different, actually. You know.
Mm-hmm. Is there like a being that your music incorporates many different sounds and styles, do you almost like is there like a preconceived idea on how you want a song to sound, or is there a lot of improvising involved?
A bit of both, you know. Of course, we were always up for experimenting, you know, and trying new stuff, but then a lot of stuff came up in the studio, you know, while we were recording, or it was improvising a lot also, but we definitely knew we wanted to, you know, add different sounds, different flavors to the whole mix, you know.
Mm-hmm. Being that the first single that you released is the first song off the album, is this almost like a conceptually based album? Do you almost feel like if a listener wants to explore this album, they should start with the first song and end with the final one? Or could a listener approach this album from any different angle?
I think that at least the first time you listen to the album should be, you know, from beginning to end. You know, and then afterwards you can pick, you can apple pick songs, you know. But of course, I think it's a very concise album. It's not very long. It's like less than 40 minutes, so it's. I think it's very easy to listen through the whole thing, and at least I recommend everyone to just sit down for 40 minutes, you know, listen to the whole trip, the whole album. And then, you know, and then maybe you like one song more, but I think the album is definitely supposed to be listened to like entirely on the entire thing.
Mm-hmm. One thing I was curious about is, for you being a vocalist, do you need to hear music before you come up with lyrics, or is there a time where maybe a concept can determine the music itself?
For me. You mean how do I write lyrics, basically? Yeah. So for me, I will always listen to the music first. You know, I get the music, and normally I would be listening to the song for days, and I will come up with. I will basically create the melody or the patterns, you know, without lyrics at all. So I would record just like yadara, you know, like nothing, like meaningless stuff, just to nail down the patterns and the melodies, and then I will write lyrics and adapt those patterns to the lyrics, basically.
Okay, do you try to leave lyrics open to interpretation, or is there like a message that you try to invoke in your sound, in your style?
It depends on the song. Like some songs are more like straight up, you know. You can get the meaning directly, and some other songs are definitely more ambiguous, I would say. Like, people have different meanings from them, and I'm very comfortable with that. I like that, actually. You know, like that everyone has their own interpretation of the lyrics, and I mean, as I said, some are pretty straight up, but some others, like the ones that talk about probably my personal experiences, I mean, unless you are me, you will never understand fully the meaning of the lyrics, basically.
Mm-hmm. That's a good way of putting it, because I feel like when I listen to like a song like Purple Tide or Atlas or Comatose, like it almost seems like there's many different vibes. It seems like lyrically you approach the lyrics from many different angles as well, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
Does inspiration like come out of nowhere sometimes, or do you kind of have to like sit down and be in a certain environment in order to get inspired to write the lyrics or even the music?
Well, it really depends. Some of the songs in the album were inspired by emotions, for example, that I was feeling back then. Purple Tide was breathing out of anger for sure. There was this case there was a case in Spain of massive rape. Basically, it was a raping, and the justice system in Spain didn't do anything about it. And I was super angry back at the time, and I wrote the song out of it. And then another song, Comatose, for example, comes from a time that I was super stressed and anxious and overthinking way too much, and some of the songs I would just write a fiction, like for example the one in Enter the Mongoose, which is a completely made up story. It's a fiction, a fantasy. So normally it just will hit me, kind of the inspiration. I'm not the kind of guy that just sit down, and waits for the inspiration to come. It's either comes or not, and if it doesn't come, I just do something else.
Yeah, well, like being that you mentioned that, like Comatose was a very stressful time. Purple Tide had a lot of anger around it. When you're like recording the vocals, you almost have to put yourself in that same state of mind that you first felt.
Yeah. Actually, I would say Atlas was probably the most difficult to record because it comes back to a time where I was not feeling too great. That was. Now it's everything past for sure, and I'm definitely over it. But back at the time, it was probably Atlas was the most difficult.
And I'd imagine that when you create art that represents how you feel, it has to bring closure to the darkness that you were feeling, right?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely, for sure. That's a very good question. For sure, man. It was definitely therapeutical for me.
Mm-hmm.
And recording the whole album recording was, at least the vocals in the album, that was very, very therapeutical, for sure.
And another thing I have a question about Mara is like, does this have any relationship to the Arcanum EP, or is this like its own thing in the Cult of Lilith catalog?
It's its own thing for sure. No, it has nothing to do with the other EP.
Okay, it's like, so it's not like the EP. Like if people are just getting on board with Cult of Lilith and people are just discovering who you are, the Arcanum EP doesn't even serve as a representation of the direction that you guys are going in.
It's there, like we are not gonna erase it from the face of the earth, But I would say definitely that EP is not in the line or in the direction that the band is going at the moment. Not at all.
Well, I've always thought that your music is fairly experimental. I know that you have your own style that you like to call it, but it's fair to say that trying new things sonically has always been part of what makes Cult of Lilith, right?
Definitely, man. I would say it's. I was talking just about this in the other interview. Like, one of the things I'm mostly happy for in this band is that we found our sound, and for me as a musician, that's one of the most difficult things you can achieve as a musician, finding your sound. And I would say that sound is definitely defined by mixing a lot of stuff. Mixing, because we're all different people, we have different musical backgrounds, even different backgrounds in general. Like they are all Icelandic and I'm Spanish. Yeah, I moved here a few years ago, but I'm born and raised in South Spain, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, a lot of different influences and different sounds mixed together. Yep.
Do you feel that, I mean, not to discredit the vocals by any means, but do you feel that if Cult of Lilith was an instrumental band, it would convey just as much emotion as the lyrics do?
That's a pretty good question, actually. I never thought of that myself. I never thought of the band being completely instrumental because I would say the voice has a lot of weight, actually. Even though the music itself, instrumentally is super rich, I would say, even without the vocals. But then, yeah, the vocals give it shape and meaning, for sure.
Yeah, it's almost kind of like the vocals are what the icing on the cake is considered to be.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, here comes a very difficult question. Like, how do you know when the song is done, in a way?
It changes a lot. The songs in the album, let's say Atlas, for example, that took a long time to shape, man. That took a long time. And trying different stuff, like months, of like trying different stuff, and then you're comfortable with something, and then the next month you fucking hate it, and you change it entirely. So it really differs from songs to songs. Because, for example, there was one song, the last song on the album, Les Soupir du Fantôme. That one I wrote the patterns and the melodies and the lyrics. I wrote it in a week. Wow. And I was pretty happy with it. And it's been months later, and I'm still very happy with it. Mm-hmm. So. It really depends, but it's never easy. Very rarely it will be a week like this one, Normally it's a long process of trying stuff and then erasing what you did and starting over, yeah.
Are you ever worried too, like the longer you work on something, the harder it is to kind of maintain that emotional spark?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And you know what? Actually, I think when you are taking time to be comfortable with the song, it's because you didn't find it. You didn't find a spark until you find it. So you keep trying stuff, and until one day, for some reason, you get it. You get the spark, and then you're happy with it. And sometimes it happens in a week, and sometimes it happens in months.
Yeah, and
that's how I see it, at least.
And you mentioned that Cult of Lilith has found its sound, but are you ever worried that like a Cult of Lilith song could sound too much like a Cult of Lilith sound?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know, man. That's a good question. I really don't know what to say. I don't think so. At the moment, I'm very happy with what we're creating, with the direction of the band, the line we have, and I'm very happy with the concept we have of our music, the necromechanical baroque concept, and we're gonna keep writing in this line. Of course, we're gonna. The next album is definitely gonna be a bit more experimental for sure. It's gonna be very different. Still the same Cult of Lilith, but it's gonna be more weird stuff for sure.
Yeah. Well,
more different mixed band.
Well, I've always heard that some artists say that that's a really good compliment because then it means you actually have perfected your sound. When people say this sounds too much like this band or it sounds too much like that band, I'm like, well, that is the band and that's what they play. So if somebody says that, if somebody calls my band repetitive, I would consider it a compliment.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I was also talking about this in the other interview. Like, for me as a musician, it's one of the most difficult things to achieve. Getting your sound and making it solid, and it's just so difficult to find your personality music wise, and even in real life, I don't think anyone is like truly a full formed person until they're in the 30s, for example,
Yeah. Well, they say that the human brain doesn't finish developing until you're about in your mid-20s or late 20s, so...
Okay, well...
I think the same could go for musicians.
Yeah.
And the final question I wanted to ask you is, being that you guys originated in Iceland, being the home of, I interviewed earlier this year Unmazir, and I have Solsifir, who's a phenomenal band, and so many other great bands are coming from Iceland. Is there kind of like a scene that Cult of Lilith is affiliated with in Iceland right now?
Sorry, come again? I missed the last part.
Oh, is there kind of like a scene that you guys are very active in Iceland?
Well, because since I joined the band, we haven't been playing many gigs because we've been heads on with the album, like only focused with the album. And then we were ready to start playing gigs again. COVID kicked in, and and we are just like everyone else. We're trying to get back to normal. We're going to play a gig in September now, but there's a second wave of COVID going on now in Iceland, so there's restrictions again, and we don't know if we will be able to play. So we played a few gigs in Iceland, but the thing is, we've been so focused on writing the album and recording and blah blah, we haven't. I feel like we haven't really been super active in the scene yet, I mean, they were playing for sure, before I joined the band, when with the other EP, for sure.
Okay.
But if I joined the band, I've only done 3 gigs with them in Iceland. Wow. Yeah.
When you joined Cult of Lilith, were you looking at like the EP being like, this is what I have to do, or did Cult of Lilith kind of let you bring your own mix into the band?
Well, absolutely not. Actually, it's a funny story. When I moved to Iceland, I posted in this Facebook musicians group that I was looking for a band. I was offering myself as a vocalist, and Daniel, the guitarist, offered me to join the band. And he showed me the EP, and I said, I'm not interested, because I wasn't very interested in the music of the old EP. I was ready to do something different, like I wanted to do metal, but something different. I needed experimentation, like something more than just straight up death metal. And then he showed me a couple of songs from a couple of demos from this album, and I was like, "Fuck me, yes, man, I'm in." And I told him, like, I joined immediately. When I heard that, I was like, "Okay, this is different. This is not the typical death metal band." I'm not saying it's a bad thing at all, to do that. It's just I was ready for something different at the moment.
And there you go. And it seems like Cult of Lilith really wanted you in the band, so they adjusted their style just to convince you to join.
No, not really. Like, actually, you know what? The majority of the album was written before I joined the band. The instrumentals, at least, not the vocals. But instrumentally, the whole album was almost entirely written before I joined the band.
Wow.
Even the flamenco part in the album.
And then you sing on the album, and we get an awesome musical album, and it's the soundtrack to the times that we're living in. So it's clearly meant to be.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it. Just obviously, Mara's coming out very soon. Is there just anything else with Cult of Lilith that you would like to promote? Right now, that gig in September is still on. Can we be expecting Cult of Lilith to come to the United States when the world returns to normal?
If the world doesn't end, for sure. You guys will have us over there.
Well, if the world does come to an end, can you still play a gig while it's happening as everything's falling apart? I think that would be awesome.
Like the musicians in the Titanic ship?
Yes, exactly. That would be the best. Please make that happen.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah. And then at the end of the show, you have to say, "Metalheads, it's been a privilege playing with you tonight." But thank you so much, Mario. Everybody, we are here with Mario of Cult of Lilith. Be sure to pick up Mara out of Metal Blade Records. This is Alex from Heavy New York. We will see you next time.